On one of my most recent videos, the #1 comment was a comment asking me to do a video about accessory muscles and exercises. And because I'm the people's champ and I'm here to make fitness great again, I'll be going over the top accessory exercises and muscles that you need to be hitting. Before I get started, I want to go over what an accessory muscle / an accessory exercise is. The ISSA states that accessory exercises strengthen the supporting smaller muscles and those that are imbalanced and weaker than others. I see accessory exercises as exercises that perfectly complement a great workout routine. In this video, I'll be going over a ton of different accessory exercises and muscles. But this video is not an entire workout routine, nor am I saying you have to do all of these accessory exercises. Accessory exercises will differ based on the demand of your sport, past injuries, or current injuries that you have. So essentially, you should select accessory exercises based on your current situation. In this video, I'll be starting from the bottom and going up, so this obviously means that I'll be starting with the feet. I've recently been interested in this trend of strengthening your feet, as I've seen the benefits it has on decreasing injury risk, as well as improving the stability of your feet. Pretty much all lifters wear these big clunky shoes that not only crush your feet, but they don't allow your feet and ankles to get stronger, as they essentially stop them from doing their job. Lifting without shoes or with barefoot shoes allows you to spread your feet and grip the ground, which not only allows your foot muscles to actually do their job, but it helps a ton with stability and balance. This is why I've been recently doing my leg days without shoes, as I'll be able to strengthen my feet as well. There are some fitness professionals that recommend that you go barefoot for all your exercises, which kind of makes sense because you do generate force from the ground up. But in my opinion, I do think it's kind of dramatic. You don't have to go barefoot for every single exercise that you do. So I would say you should start doing your leg days barefoot or with barefoot shoes. And if you want to take it to the extreme, you can go barefoot or wear barefoot shoes for upper extremity exercises as well. Now up the body to the ankle joint, and the first actual accessory exercise is to strengthen your dorsiflexors or your shin muscles. So many people have a muscular imbalance between their plantar flexors and their dorsiflexors, especially doughboy bodybuilders who train their calves and then they don't train their shin muscles. I don't care where it is, a muscular imbalance is a bad thing and it can lead to injuries in the future. This is why it's incredibly important to strengthen your dorsiflexors or your shin muscles. Strengthening your dorsiflexors will not only lead to a healthy ankle joint, but it will also lead to a healthier knee joint, as it will reduce the amount of force going through your knees. This is why you see people like the knees over toes guy recommend dorsiflexion strengthening for knee pain. And the best way to strengthen your dorsiflexors is to do some sort of tib raise variation. The best, in my opinion, is to use a tib bar. When it comes to accessory exercises, I think the best ones are the ones that is the easiest to progressively overload on. And when it comes to tib raise variations, I think using a tib bar is the easiest way to progressively overload the exercise. But if your gym doesn't have a tib bar, you can do bodyweight tib raises or you can use a kettlebell. But like I said earlier, these aren't the easiest variations to load up on, which is why I typically recommend a tib bar to strengthen your dorsiflexors. The three foundational leg movements are a squat, hinge, and lunge. And while these do an amazing job building aesthetic and athletic legs, they don't work on knee flexion. Like I said earlier, a muscular imbalance is a bad thing, and spamming all these leg exercises and not working on your knee flexion strength will lead to a muscular imbalance at the knee, where your knee extensors are stronger than your knee flexors. And while the hamstrings are hit well with a hinge movement, you want to make sure you're hitting the knee flexion action of the hamstrings as well. One of the easiest ways to strengthen your knee flexors is to do some sort of leg curl variation. If you watch my channel, you know I talk a lot of shit about the leg curl, but one of the main reasons why I talk so badly about the leg curl is because people use it as a replacement for a hinge exercise. Don't be a stupid bodybuilder and use leg curls as a replacement for a hinge. Use it in addition if you want to work on knee flexion. If you use the leg curl in this way, I don't have too much beef and I won't get mad at you. But if you really want to bulletproof your knees and hamstrings, I would go with some more athletic knee flexion exercises that will transfer outside the gym far better than the leg curl, with two of my favorites being the famous Nordic curl and an exercise like sliding hamstring curls. Doing these exercises will improve your knee health and decrease the risk of hamstring injuries. Before I get into the next accessory exercise, if you're looking to build an aesthetic physique, be sure to check out my 90-day aesthetic body blueprint. This takes all the guesswork out of achieving an aesthetic and athletic physique. But if you're more focused on athletic performance, be sure to check out my 120-day peak athleticism package. Both of these will be in the description. The next action of the leg that's not hit very well with the foundational leg exercises is hip flexion. Most lifters do their fair share of squats and hinge exercises that hit the hip extensors well, but most lifters neglect hip flexion training. Again, we don't want a muscular imbalance in the body, and most people have an imbalance where their hip extensors are far stronger than their hip flexors. But as I stated earlier, I prefer to select exercises that are the easiest to load up on. This is why my favorite exercise to strengthen the hip flexors is this line cable variation, as I personally find bodyweight knee flexion exercises to be way too easy, and doing a popular variation with a kettlebell will be very hard to load up once you get strong. Strengthening your hip flexors will play a major role in low back health, as well as massively improving your athletic athleticism. Whenever you run, cut, land, or jump, there's a battle for knee stability going on at the hip. The tight, often overactive adductors want to pull your knee into a valgus position or a caved-in knee position. Whenever your knees are in this valgus position, they're exposed to all kinds of injury risk, which can be chronic like patellofemoral joint syndrome or acute like an ACL tear, which is why it's so important for athletes to strengthen the glute med, which plays an important role in preventing valgus at the knee. A few great exercises to strengthen the glute med are single leg squats and single leg landings. When doing these exercises, make sure you actively cue yourself to not allow your knees to cave in. But one of the easiest exercises to load up is to do reverse ice skaters, where you essentially have a band around your ankles and you step backwards in a 45-degree angle. Strengthening your glute med will play a major role in preventing serious knee injuries. While the last exercise works on your glute med, which is a hip abductor, we also don't want to ignore our hip adductors. While they are hit to a certain extent with exercises like a lunge, squat, or deadlift, you may want to target them specifically to increase strength, reduce tightness, and prevent injuries like a groin strain. There are many ways to strengthen your hip adductors. I honestly don't have too much beef with the hip adduction machine, as it's an easy way to load up your hip adductors. But my favorite exercise to strengthen the hip adductors has to be the Copenhagen plank. In this exercise, you have to maintain this position by firing the adductor at the top. And once you get stronger, you can progress to a straight leg variation and add in some pulses as well. The next accessory exercise will be focused on strengthening the back extensors. This is more important for people who do direct ab work or have a history of low back issues. Lots of people do direct ab work and never compensate with back extension work. This is like training your chest and then not training your back. This will lead to a muscular imbalance between your trunk flexors and your trunk extensors that can lead to serious back problems in the future. This is why I always balance direct ab work with some back extension work as well. Some great exercises are just a back extension variation where you can adjust the position of your arms to increase the intensity, with your arms at your side being the easiest. Then you progress up to arms across your chest, then you progress up to arms behind your head, and then you progress to an external load. But if you don't have access to the necessary equipment to do this, you can just do bodyweight Supermans. Doing this will help prevent low back issues in the future and just create a healthier low back in general. One of the most talked about exercises today is the Jefferson curl, and for good reason. Whenever we do exercises in the gym, we are focused on keeping a neutral spine and generating force. But not everything in life replicates what we do in the gym, especially if you train like a lazy bodybuilder. Outside the gym, sometimes we're going to be rounding our backs, and we don't want to be completely lost when this situation occurs. This is where Jefferson curls come in. Jefferson curls helps with spinal mobility, improves spinal flexion tolerance, and decreases your fear of rounding your back. Whenever you're doing this exercise, make sure you start with light weight and progress appropriately, as you don't want to jump into too much too soon. One of the most slept on exercises in the gym has to be weighted carries. If you're a regular viewer of my channel, you probably do your fair share of carries. Even though it is a foundational human movement, I'm including it in this video because pretty much nobody does weighted carries. I can't even remember the last time I went to the gym and saw someone doing a weighted carry. Carries transfer incredibly well to daily activities in sports as they strengthen your core, including your hip and shoulder stabilizers, your deep posture muscles, and your grip. When I say weighted carries, I don't just mean farmer carries. You can do suitcase carries, front-loaded carries, overhead carries, any sort of weighted carry. I personally see weighted carries as a non-negotiable that everyone has to start including in their lifting routine. I don't care if your goal is bodybuilding, powerlifting, whatever. You have to start including weighted carries into your routine. Just like the carry, another foundational movement that is slept on is rotation. If you have a proper lifting routine, and by proper lifting routine, I mean not a lazy bodybuilding routine where you do every exercise sitting down and use a bunch of machines, but a great athletic bodybuilding routine where you prioritize ground-based free weight exercises, you're actually hitting your core incredibly well. But unfortunately, these compound movements don't work your core in the transverse plane, which is why it's so important to add trunk rotation work into your lifting routine. You can do things like cable rotations to improve rotational strength, medicine ball throws, or barbell rotations to improve rotational power, but don't forget anti-rotation exercises as well, so you're able to stabilize the core from all directions, with the path-off press being my favorite way to work on anti-rotational stability. Adding rotation to a great athletic bodybuilding routine will lead to complete core development that will help tremendously in your ability to generate force in all scenarios. Now up to the shoulder and scapular region, then the first accessory exercise is to work on external rotation strength. Due to daily activities, most of us have internally rotated shoulders. And when you add the fact that a typical lifting routine doesn't strengthen the external rotators very well, with the rear delts being the only external rotator that's worked on to some degree, most people have weak external rotators of the shoulder. This leads to people having poor posture, pain with upper body movements, and shoulder instability. My favorite exercises to strengthen external rotation is to just do a cable external rotation exercise, or by using a dumbbell. I like this dumbbell variation as it allows me to work on external rotation through a full range of motion. Now into the scapular stabilizers, and from personal experience, everybody has weak, mid, and low traps. In my physical therapy class, every single person tested weak on mid and low trap strength. And no, we're not a bunch of 60-year-old people. We're healthy 20-year-old people who are pretty active, and everybody tested weak for mid and low trap strength. Weak, mid, and low traps can lead to shoulder instability, and I've noticed they play the biggest impact on trash posture. Because these muscles are weak, they're not working like they should do in compound movement. So this is why we need to strengthen the mid and low traps in isolation first, so they can participate in functional movement patterns like a row. The best exercise to strengthen the low traps is Y raises. I personally like using a cable, but you can do it on a bench with dumbbells as well. When performing this exercise, you want to make sure that you're bringing your shoulder blades together and keeping your shoulder down so the upper trap doesn't take over. And if you're using dumbbells, make sure that your thumbs are pointed up to the sky. This will be the best way to isolate and strengthen the low trap. And to strengthen the mid traps, the best exercise is T raises. And just like Y raises, I like to use a cable, but you can also use dumbbells and a bench as well. Although this exercise looks very similar to a rear delt fly, it's actually very different. Firstly, you'll do the exercise with your palms up, or if you're using dumbbells, you'll be doing it with your thumbs pointed to the sky. And unlike a rear delt fly, the goal of this movement is not necessarily to bring your arms outwards. The goal of this movement is actually to bring your shoulder blades together. Strengthening your mid and low traps will help tremendously with shoulder stability and getting amazing aesthetic posture. The last two exercises hit the shoulder stabilizers in isolation. But once you make sure these muscles are strong in isolation, you do want to make sure you eventually progress to functional movements, as rarely, if ever in real life, are your shoulder stabilizers working in isolation. What your shoulder stabilizers actually do is work together to stabilize the shoulder. While compound free weight upper body exercises do this, if you're somebody with a history of shoulder issues, or you're involved in a sport that requires a ton of shoulder stability, doing more intense variations may be beneficial. And a great way to do this is by using a kettlebell. By holding a kettlebell upside down, the level of instability is increased, which forces your shoulder stabilizers to work harder. Some great kettlebell shoulder exercises are an upside down kettlebell press, an upside down kettlebell walk, and a kettlebell windmill. And those are all the accessory exercises that you might want to include in your lifting routine. There may be a couple accessory exercises that I left out, but these are the ones that I think of when I think of exercises that perfectly complement a great lifting routine. If you're someone who's interested in building an aesthetic chest, I recently made a video where I reacted to Jeff Nippard's chest exercise tier list.